Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Secret Origins of Mint Condition. I am your host, James, and for this episode, my starting line will be To Me, My X-Men. And I am your team leader, and joining me on this ride through what will be X-Men 97, I have assembled an excellent gold team of mutants to help me talk about this show. So joining me first is our oracle of X-Men knowledge, Arco Esposito is with us.
Thank you, James. I am happy to be here.
And also joining us is returning guest and also X-Men whose X-Men knowledge runs deep. Shareef McIntosh is back with us.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here as well.
Also joining us is returning guest, pop culture fan, X-Men animated enthusiast, Josh Murray.
Oh, hello.
And joining us for the first time, making their first appearance on the show, which would make this issue extra special collectible, is a X-Men fan, a fan of the podcast. Allie Bernard Graham is with us today.
Hi everyone. It's weird because I just yesterday listened to your X-Men #1 episode, and it's all the same, almost all the same voices, pretty much.
And it was awesome, wasn't it? All right, that's all.
So we have a lot to cover. Honestly, we could probably do an hour on each episode, but we don't have time to do 10 hours of podcasting. Maybe for season 2 of X-Men 97, unless we're going to call X-Men 98 at that
98.
point, we'll do a breakdown of each episode. But I'm going to start with, because we have a lot to cover, I'm just going to start with opening impressions and kind of just go from there and see where this conversation takes us. Allie, since you're new to the show, hopefully we'll have a separate episode with you to give you more of your secret origin. But I'm going to start with you as our new team member to our X-Men group. What were your overall thoughts of X-Men 97, and what did you think coming into the show?
So I was just excited for more X-Men. I've always been X-Men were really the only superheroes, the only comic characters I ever really cared about. And then I sort of when the MCU started, I went to some of the movies and I was like, I don't know. I don't really care. I really started caring actually with Black Panther. And the reason I cared about Black Panther was because I'd seen the BET series, and so I knew about his relationship with Storm. So it all roots back to X-Men for me. So when they announced X-Men 97, I was super excited. I feel like no one I knew really cared. They were like, yeah, it's just an animated show, whatever. And so I'm blown away by how amazing it was, and I'm so excited that it's doing well. And everyone else thinks, I mean, not literally everyone, but overall it has really great ratings. So X-Men are gonna be, are a big thing in pop culture right now, and I'm excited about that. And I was not someone who watched the original series when it aired. I watched it as an adult. I was introduced to it. So the only criticism that I've heard that really is just that it's nostalgia bait. But I love it, and I wasn't a kid when I originally watched it. So it's not hitting that deep thing for me that you're like, oh, I saw this when I was a kid, so I have to love it. I was 22 when I saw it. So yeah, it was it is when I fell in love with the X-Men, but it's not the same thing. So I feel like I'm somewhat proof of it's not just nostalgia bait. It doesn't hit that thing of when I was a kid and when my brain was developing, I was a full adult. So and I love what they've done with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it went from, you could argue the first 4 episodes might have been nostalgia bait, but once you hit episode 5, with Remember the Name, we were no longer in nostalgia bait, I think, realm anymore. They were upping the ante to show you this is not the 90s cartoon show anymore.
Oh yeah.
We are taking was it I think you guys were talking about it when I jumped on before we started recording. This is Game of Thrones / Walking Dead territory. Nobody is possibly safe. And,
absolutely, absolutely.
We're taking risks. So, well, Allie, since you kicked us off, I'm going to move it over. Josh, what's your thoughts of because I would say Allie and Josh of our team here. You two are more coming through from the animated series side,
Yeah.
and Shareef and Arco, and I guess myself too, are coming from the comic book animated side. So, Josh, I'm just overall impressions, thoughts coming into it.
I was kind of like burnt out on Star Wars before they even announced the Mandalorian, and I loved it. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, all right. And same with Andor, and then with this, I was like, it's cool, but and I watch a lot of cartoons, so it had nothing to do with that. I just thought it was going to be more like kid based because appealing to like trying to make it like relevant again for like kids. And then friend of I don't know if he's ever been on this show, but friend of Trash Compactor, John Hansen, we grew up together. And my introduction to X-Men was he drew me a picture of Gambit. Like that's how, and that's the dawn of our friendship also, is he just drew me a picture of Gambit. But I didn't know who Gambit was, so he explained it, and then Gambit's always been my favorite. So episode 5 is just like blew my mind. But he summed it up really well too to like get me to watch it. He said that X-Men 97 is actually everything we thought the original animated series was. Like this is actually it. And so I just loved every single second of it. I didn't leave there wasn't like since I don't have the comics to go off of, I was never like, what is this? I don't I was just like, this is awesome and I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I just like ate it all up like yeah. I was gonna try to reference a comic book character, but I don't know any, so I just ate it all up. Like insert here. Who's the guy that does all the ratings and he like eats like video game ratings? That's how I ate it up. Right? He
Mojo.
was
Mojo.
yeah,
Mojo?
Mojo. Yeah, I ate it up like Mojo.
Which Josh,
Oh.
I would agree with you. There's nothing I didn't like about this series except Mojo. I don't know. I am not a Mojo long shot spiral fan. Like
Yeah.
Mojo
I
versus
was just thinking the same thing. Yeah.
That like half episode made me kind of do that like little like Michael Myers like head tilt like huh. But then I upon second watching I liked it even better than the first watching, so it was I was all on
Yeah,
board even for that.
For me, it's just Mojo.
yeah,
Like I liked old Jubilee. I liked the stuff with Sunspot. Like, and it was just Mojo. I was just like, ugh.
yeah. I was.
So I didn't dislike that episode as much as I thought I was going to. Like, I saw the name of it and I was like, oh god, they're doing another Mojo episode. But yeah, overall, yeah, I don't know. We could have had more of the Storm stuff. Like that was kind of not my favorite choice, but yeah, Mojo is also like the only weak spot really to me.
Yeah,
This whole series.
I didn't like him in the comic books. I didn't like the toy. I don't even know why I had the toy. But anyway, let's keep moving on with our panel before this becomes like the X-Men 97 Why We Hate Mojo show. So, Shareef, what was your thoughts and expectations coming in?
Sure. Much like Josh, I like to go in with low expectations. I don't like to hype myself up, especially with Disney Plus. Like you said, with the Star Wars shows, there was a very low bar for me on those shows. And the sad part is I'm gonna watch them all, like guaranteed. But I will do it begrudgingly and I will be objective because if it sucks, I'm gonna say it sucks. I'm not gonna give it that fanfare. So I went in with a low bar. I thought same as Josh that this was gonna be for kids more so, and they were trying to re-energize the children. So I didn't think it would be a lot for me. I thought it would just be like, trying to reinvigorate the series for kids. I was blown away immediately, and especially as someone who read the comic books, I've always felt like this is the thing you guys don't have who haven't read the comic books. There's this concept of my heroes are not being used to their full potential because their abilities are not being articulated or illustrated correctly. So that is always like in the back of your mind, like, why is he not as strong as he normally is? Why they're not showing his true feats of strength? So we always have that as comic book fans. And this took that away because they used abilities in ways we hadn't seen anywhere. We hadn't seen in the comic books, we hadn't seen in any other animated series, we hadn't seen in the movies. So to me, that really brought a lot to it, that they were thinking about not just telling the story, but actually illustrating their abilities in a different way. Because, I mean, there's not a lot you can get from a hero, and sometimes it gets cheesy. I'm sure Arco and James remember Superman Superman 2, where he took off his S and threw it, and it turned into like a big, like, I don't know, net or cyber thing, and went over people and shrink wrapped.
Yeah.
So sometimes things get cheesy when people go outside, try to think outside the box with people's abilities, and this was not that. This was me and Arco having like serious text messaging conversations about it, and talking about like how amazing that the abilities are, and that the showrunner who they fired, that he needs to be like Kevin Feige's right hand man, because this needs to be the movies. Like this will reinvigorate Marvel. Marvel's got some fatigue right now, as I'm sure everybody knows. It's not a secret. And this would do it, man, because we didn't get X-Men the whole time. 20 years worth of movies, and we didn't get any X-Men. So no mutants whatsoever. So I was very happy to see this. Everybody was done correctly. I felt like they captured the essence of all the characters. Wolverine always has this kind of like, he can't be as R-rated as he is. Like, he's always kind of having to be in a PG-13 situation when he's an R-rated character. So they didn't do that. They let Wolverine be Wolverine. He was seeming like he wanted to kill people. He said as much. He was very dangerous. He went berserk a lot. And so I was over the moon. And I think a lot of people like myself, we went in very skeptical, and we came out amazed, blown away by how awesome it was. And I really listen, if I'm talking about an X-Men animated episode that reminds me of the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones, we're talking about serious business here. This is not Saturday morning cartoons. This is late night television for adults, So I really loved it. I think it blasted past all of my expectations. I didn't care for the Mojo stuff as well. I don't care for Mojo as a character. Just as an aside, Mojo's trash, but I do like.
I'm just glad I'm not. I always thought I was alone.
No.
And then
I think everybody hates Mojo.
Series, I was like, oh no, almost the entire family.
Oh yeah. Mojo, and what they did with him was terrible. He was just a waste. But I do like Longshot though. Longshot, I like Longshot. Longshot's an interesting character for me. I always liked him. I thought he's a cool character. I like characters that are kind of weird, like Domino and Longshot, kind of luck as an ability. I like that type of stuff.
No, I mean, I don't dislike Longshot's okay.
Is it a power, sir? Is it a power though?
I mean, I feel like Longshot he was very cool when he came in the 90s. I didn't quite connect with him, but Shareef, I'll say I mean, I kind of thought this already. I might be in the minority, but seeing what they did with Cyclops' power, I'm like, he's the man. Like Cyclops,
yes,
he's the man.
Yes,
you rarely feel, because Cyclops is usually like all American, Mr. like straight lace, and he doesn't let loose, and he doesn't show any emotions really. He's always buttoned up. So this was like Cyclops being a boss and being amazing and being a badass, frankly, which we rarely. I mean, I'm sorry, we never get. We never get Cyclops as a badass.
And we got to see him do things that no one's in the comic book page at least thought to do with his powers. So yeah,
exactly.
Like the sliding, was that in the comics that he would do when he would slide around with his blast? No.
Nope.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't
that's
think
awesome. Yeah.
Jumped out of a plane before and used his blast.
Definitely didn't do that.
So, well, now we have to hear from our X-Men Oracle.
I mean, it got me after Sir went, and he's a lot smarter than I am. So I'm just going to really parrot what everybody has said, except for I had zero expectations, because I'd only heard that they were doing this maybe 2 or 3 months earlier. So I didn't care in the slightest. being the oldest person on this panel, I will tell you that in the 90s, I did watch the cartoon in the first season. Saturdays I was doing other things, so I would probably catch it on reruns or during the middle of the week, or they would have it. And it caught my attention very, offhand. At that point, when it started in 92, I was 19, 20 years old. And by the time it ended, I was 25. So, the show did not mean that much to me, like it did some of the younger ones. Okay, some of the younger people. However, some of the stories, that they had on there, I liked. I liked obviously. I love the Phoenix story, the Dark Phoenix story, and when they had Apocalypse on, that was very interesting to me. Fast forward a few years, and I got all of them on DVD illegally on eBay. So obviously, something clicked that I wanted to watch them. I still have all 86 of them on DVD. But look at the world that we live in now. I can just click on a button and then I can watch it instead of getting it illegally. Um, James and Shareef, we've spoken about this, but to me, the best thing that this represents is how they have brought these amazing stories that we have spoken about and that that I love, and they brought it to us in this manner that it makes sense. It comes across as fulfilling as possible, even though it's in a 30 to 45 minute format. And you could pick up X-Men 97 at episode 1, and you are not missing anything from the 90s or the comics. Okay, if you just wanted to get into the X-Men, you could have started at episode 1. And just like we had the episode on the podcast that we did about X-Men 1, 1991, that was your jumping off point, and you were perfectly good with it. You'd never had to read any other story before then. That you were an X-Men fan after that, and you were perfect. You didn't have to know anything else. That's what they recreated with X-Men 97, and we are better for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. It is a great jumping on point. I don't think you needed to watch X-Men from the 90s to appreciate this, though. They've done a very good job. The showrunner, who is not with us for reasons that we don't know, but they did, and the writing team did a very job honoring the comic books, honoring the original series, and then taking classic storylines and putting them in the 90s era, because there were things that came up that were not part of the 90s era of comics. There were things that came out in the I know Arco's not favorite, but the Grant Morrison run. Obviously, episode 5 was taken right from the Grant Morrison
episode 5 was 2001. Yeah, but James, you're making a great point. It all worked seamlessly, and that is because of the great writing that they had to bring in something, to bring in the death, the episode 5. Let's not. If we don't want to do spoilers, we won't do spoilers. But okay, do spoilers. So obviously, the death of Genosha. The death of Genosha happened during the Grant Morrison run, which happened in 2001. This is a 90s show. There's obviously supposed to be 1997, and you had Madeline Pryor there. You had the Hellfire Club there. It was almost like they were actually doing a little bit of a great series that James turned me on to, the Krakoa series, where they were, elements of a mutant society, which was like 5 or 6 years worth in the comics of this Krakoa series in this episode, and which was wiped out in one fell swoop. Although I will say this, they didn't kill as many mutants in the show as they did in the comics. In the comics, it was 16 million that died, and there was a running total at the top. So there was 16 million down to 11 million down to 5 million, and then like 0. So that it was quite
never came back.
Yeah.
And
so I have a question, because I know I've read some of the comics here and there, but I haven't read it like in its entirety. So Genosha and Krakoa, I know they're like different times and different. Are they like kind of like
okay? So
bringing back the same idea just in a different spot?
Can I answer this?
Of course.
So Genosha was an allegory for South African apartheid. So it came out in the story of Genosha originally came out in 1987 in the X-Men 230s, where the entire economy was built on the slave labor of mutants, although they call them mutates on that particular island. And it was an island off of the African coast, like near Madagascar, a small island, but it was very prosperous. They mutants eventually, through the comic book series, took over that island of Genosha, and Magneto himself used this former slave colony and now made it a mutant haven. So, which is a little bit of what they were doing is what exactly they were doing in the show. However, when I bring up Krakoa, I'm talking about the whole socioeconomic system that they were creating on there. That's what they did. That's what they showed in the last 7 or 8 years on the Krakoa series. Krakoa itself, the island of Krakoa itself, was a mutant, and it was actually the very first mutant that the new X-Men fought in 1975 when they went to the island, and then the island actually grew legs and a big head and big googly red eyes, and of course they shot that island into space, so I don't know how it came back, but we won't get into that. Yeah,
because comics.
Yeah.
Comics, exactly.
Well, you had Genosha, you have Krakoa, and then you had Asteroid M, which was another haven.
Yes, another haven. So Magneto has been involved in all three of them, which is amazing to me. Okay, so Magneto had a part in all three of those. So for all of Magneto's faults, and I'm sure we could talk about millions of them, he always did want what was best for his people, because he's already lost his people once in the Holocaust, because he is a Holocaust survivor. So he lost 6 million of his people already. He did not want to lose any more.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, I guess it's a good part too. I think it was hard to how to structure this episode, and I didn't give you guys any structure anyway, so just you're gonna do the best you can. But I figured we've done the overview of how we felt. Now I guess we should maybe focus on highlights. We could be revisiting X-Men 97 in another episode, but I figured the best way to do this, since we're not going to do an episode breakdown because we don't have the time, and also I think a lot of other people do that already. So I figured we could just kind of go to our highlights. So, Allie, I'll start back with you. If you're looking at all 10 episodes, what is your highlight or highlights?
Well, one highlight is I just love Magneto as a character, and I love. I mean, that's part of why I love X-Men so much. I love the sort of ambiguity of it. It's not so cut and dry, good versus evil. You understand where Magneto's coming from. You also see Professor X's flaws. They kind of reverse at different times. And I love how you saw Magneto be reasonable, and you saw him try to do it Charles's way. And even when he's doing monstrous things, you're still but I get where he's
he totally lives in the gray.
Maybe I wouldn't do that.
He totally lives in the gray, and it's something I believe that we all can we can relate to, because we, like you said, we see both sides.
Yeah, and seeing in the last episode his relationship with Professor X was really, or Xavier at the time, just really beautiful. I know that and I mean, and X-Men, I love that it can be an allegory for so many societal issues, but especially with this show, seeing it as an allegory for gay rights, and then you see some of the undertones, their relationship is just it was just really, really moving. The whole seeing some of their backstory and the memory of them meeting, and sort of seeing where they diverge and where they find common ground, and sort of them coming out to each other was really cool. I loved that. Yeah, so that was a big thing for me. It was really just Magneto, and I just love when writers really focus on the ambiguity and the good in the quote unquote villains, and you also sort of are angry at Charles, you know, you see more of the grays in the leaders.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, it's their relationship is obviously a very unique one because like they have mutual respect, and Charles would say love. I don't know if Magneto would say love, but I think it is there. But even to the point where Professor X like obviously takes the gauntlet off after Magneto does the classic fatal attraction scene and tries to wipe or take over Magneto's mind. He's still like, he's not like he's upset with Charles in the last episode, but not as upset as you think he would be for what Charles was trying to do to him. So it's
Yeah.
and they just keep coming back together no matter what they do to each other or threaten each other with. Mainly in Magneto's part, threatening Charles, but Charles has done things too. They always come back together. So yeah, I think it's an amazing, and I think the writing captured it just as beautifully as the comic books too in this show. So.
Yeah.
Josh, what was like your highlight or highlights?
Well, I mean, I did love the gray heroes because I did when say for in the MCU when Thanos first came onto the screen and he was like one of the first bad guys that they didn't make like monstrous just for the sake of being monstrous, right? You left kind of being like I I'm not totally against what Thanos is saying, but just his like going about it is like bad. But what happened was the heroes never make mistakes, right? And so I loved in this that Charles is like doing the best that he can, and he's like, no, like Cyclops and Jean, they'd be so much better. Like I'm not going to leave it to them so they could be free. And that's when like Cyclops is kind of also like, well, you didn't think I would just constantly be getting called back? You think you're going to set me free and I'm just going to watch all these terrible things happen and not like come help out? And so he's kind of like the fact that like Charles played that wrong and he's like had his fumbles. I really love that. I'm a sucker for like any sort of unrequited love situation, like star-crossed lovers, even if it's like in that zone where it's just like I, in the Bible, there's a relationship between David and Jonathan that they never say is like a homosexual relationship, but they say they were closer than brothers were, and that's kind of the feeling I get from Magneto and Charles, where it's like something's unrequited there. I don't know if it's like actual love, if it's familiar friendship, if it's um brotherhood, but they're always on the opposite side, and I'm such a sucker for that kind of like best frenemies. Like always gets me, and I love that. And then Gambit having his day was just I couldn't everything that this guy did. I was like on the edge of my seat when he charged Wolverine's claws for the first time. I think I like shot off Adam like off my couch, and my wife was just like, "What the hell?" I was like, "No, this is crazy!" Like, and then like like there are certain things like I knew he was going to charge the motorcycle because I'm like, oh, they're leaning fully in. But then when he's like stabbed and he's in front of the big giant sentinel, and then you just see his charge going through the and like charging the whole thing, I'm like got goosebumps right now. You can't even see it, but like I just like absolutely love that. And then Nightcrawler, one thing I do want to say though is I'm so glad you guys had me on for that Wolverine episode where you guys were trying to politely tell me how wrong I was for not liking Wolverine
No,
because
no, you weren't wrong.
no, but I was because I'm so glad for that because I was able to fully embrace Wolverine in this series because of that. Like, so when he's like fighting in like the sky, like just like stabbing everybody on his way down, I was just like, this is the greatest thing in the world. But I don't think I would have felt that without our previous like explanation of because now I got to see Wolverine besides being like a Hugh Jackman like mega box draw, which they'll just do whatever they want to him, and he's this super sexy guy. And so the fact that he's just like plummeting to Earth like a asteroid, just like stabbing everybody, and then him and Nightcrawler back to back, it was just so great. There's the greatest show of all time.
Yeah, I texted you, Josh. I was like, Wolverine and Nightcrawler back to back, man. Six blades or whatever, 9 blades.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
9! Right, because it's the little German play on,
It's
like
9.
it's so great. But then when you see what it looks like to get teleported by Nightcrawler too, it was great. And there's like, man, I'm gonna go on forever. No, I'll try not to. But so there's like again, I know I'm crossing brands, so like forgive me for bringing DC up in a Marvel thing, but in Watchmen, remember the whole problem with Dr. Manhattan was is like kind of like lack of connection with humanity after a while. And so like when there's a scene in Vietnam when comedian kills that pregnant woman and he's like, well, you could have stopped it. There's something similar that happens when like when Rogue drops was it a Bolivar Trask, right? Drops him off
Right.
the thing and
Yeah.
he crashes and then everybody all the X-Men that could fly and teleport and everything are like, Rogue, what did you do? And then I'm kind of like, I start to get that little bit of, but they could have helped. Like, so it like kind of like showed me a little bit of like, kind of like what Magneto and like that split of is that there is the separation no matter what. And you see it again in the last episode where humanity has like what, like an hour to live. And so Wolverine's like, all right, we have to save humanity. And Rogue's like, no, come on, why are you trying to kill Magneto? We're just kind of having fun here. You know, like she like almost like not punishes him, but like reprimands him for like trying to kill Magneto. And you're like, wait, but the entire Earth has like an hour to live, like if you don't fix it. And she's like, come on, like pull your punches, guys. Like, what are you doing? And so there is that kind of like, I could see why maybe humanity, I don't agree with it, but like why they might be witnessing this stuff and being like, okay, yeah, they're clearly, we're like ants to them because we're fighting for our lives and they're just saying like, could you not hit me as hard as you were doing it, please? And so I think that that was a very fun thing to explore. Like, is there kind of a more of a detachment than they let on? And all right, okay, now
No,
I'm
I mean, I think you're onto something there. Because, I mean, clearly in the first two episodes, like the second episode when the Cyclops is being interviewed, he lost it. He lost it. Like he feels it. Like
Yeah.
yeah, because he said, was it the great line? Good thing we're nothing like you, because that's why you're still alive.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my god!
I mean,
It's
that's
and like
Cyclops saying it.
yeah, I love it. It was like the just letting on like, no, we're fully aware that we could take over all of you at once. And I also just loved how weird the show was. Like the weird like David Lynch vibes that I get. Give me a talking owl that like head spins around and like give me like this weird like mansion of nightmares and stuff like that. I was like, make you couldn't get weird enough for me because everything's so hyper realistic now. I was just like, bring it on. Oh, just I want give me all the talking owls. It's great.
That was I loved that with Cyclops. That was the most human mutant. I don't know. You know, like that was the most human I've seen Cyclops in any 100% to me. Like, oh, okay, so he's like relatable. Like you see his anger. You see, you know, he's not just keeping it cool and just constantly worried about Jean.
Right.
Like that's all that I've ever really seen of Cyclops. And there's like way more to him, and there's more depth to him.
Actually, all we saw with him in the movies too. So like it's like and for a lot of the comic books, like they gave Cyclops some dimension, and and he didn't come off like being, you know, like a bad guy for it. I mean, I know there was a period of time in the X-Men a couple like 10 years ago when Cyclops went bad, and
oh, it was the Phoenix Force. It does that to everybody.
Well, I don't know if before the Phoenix Force. It was like during was it before the Phoenix Force?
No, I think
that was after AVX, right? With the or no,
yes.
Yeah,
but he was under a lot of stress. His girlfriend keeps on dying. He got himself another brother that he never met. You know, I totally understand.
His father left for space. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Arco, I'm going to switch to you since, you know, I'll leave Shareef for the end this time. I'll switch to you for this time.
If I had to pick, you know, obviously I think most people would say that episode 5 with Gambit's moment was amazing to me. You know, the whole series to me, I'm going to take the easy way out. The whole series to me is a highlight because I am shocked at how amazing they were able to pull this off. Okay. IGN came out with an article, and, you know, I'd like to give them the props on this, but to be able to make the animation amazing is only part of it. They able to do the stories correctly. It was the hardest thing to do. They were able to do The Trial of Magneto, which came out in 1985, Life Death, which came out shortly there, right before that, as a matter of fact, in the issue 197 and 198, Fatal Attractions, which happened in 1993, Operation Zero Tolerance happened in 1997, and then the death of Genosha in 2001. Inferno was in there. We spoke about Fatal Attractions. Inferno, 1988. As you know, I love Inferno. They were able to do all of these things in bite size. Shareef Paboni came up with this the other day. I gave him some props. We have a short attention span. We need something in bite. We're a YouTube society now. We want things in bite size. Bite size increments. Give me something in 30. Hell, I can't even watch a video in 30 minutes on YouTube these days. Give me the synopsis in 20 minutes. That's what they're able to do with Inferno. They gave me the best part of Fatal Attractions, pulling out Wolverine's adamantium, something that took two issues. They did literally in less than 30 seconds, and they didn't even talk about it in episode 10. Did anybody not know?
Yeah, they didn't even resolve that. We
Exactly. Well, spoiler alert, he's still alive. Okay, and he's on for quite a bit in the comics also. So to be able to do this and give it to me in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, the best parts of all of these storylines without it seeming rushed or cheapened. Mojo be damned. I thought everything was a highlight. But I will give you my absolute highlight is that when Magneto in episode 9, took up Asteroid M, I said to myself, and this happened in probably like the first 5-10 minutes of the show, I said to myself, okay, Professor X is back. He did that. He's taken up Asteroid M. Are they doing Fatal Attractions? All right. And I said to myself, okay, well, keep an eye on that. Then they split the teams up in a way that they did not have in the comic books. Jean Grey was with them on Asteroid M, but she wasn't with him on this. So I said, nope, they're not doing it. Wow. Look at the goosebumps on me right here. I never was so happy to be wrong. Not that I wanted it to happen, but to see it happen, and it worked amazingly. And what did he do right before that, Shareef? Right before he got his adamantium pulled out, he stabbed him right through a Magneto, through the chest, through his back. Did you ever think you would see a Disney show, movie, or anything that was supposed to be geared for kids with blood, literally blood and guts on his claws? Never. Never did I think that I would see what I loved in the comics on the screen. And to be able to do that the way that they did is an absolute highlight. It is the greatest scene that I've seen in any animation, and I will say it, this was the greatest Marvel product to come out since Endgame, and I've loved many of the shows that we've talked about. I love Loki. I loved WandaVision. Moon Knight had its moments, but this is the best of the best, and it's a cartoon.
Yeah. Well, I think I didn't mean to jump in because I know we have to do Shareef. Okay. I think like animation is showing itself to be really probably the only like great way to get a comic book onto screen, because there's something that like it's literally anything that they could draw in a comic you can make in the movie and just animate. You don't have to worry about like actual depth of focus. Like you could kind of play around with stuff in art which you might not be able to achieve on camera, and so but you could achieve it with animation. And so I think that's where it really kind of succeeded. And the fact that you could do, if you put Wolverine fighting somebody falling from like the outer limits of the sky and then just getting back up to fight more in a movie, it's not going to come across nearly as good as it does in an animated thing. So you got like the real sense of what the characters could do, and not like the movie. We still have to kind of make it as realistic as we can involving mutants, and so that's why I really like the animation.
Josh, real fast to that point, and this is going to be the bashing of Marvel, which at some point was going to have to happen today, is that they were doing that correctly from 2008 to 2019. So what has gone wrong since then? Okay, what has gone wrong in the writing that they feel they've had to go in this opposite direction to what they were originally doing, and they've only been able to accidentally find in a cartoon show? Where has this been? Shareef wants Bo DeMeo to be Kevin Feige's right-hand man. Okay, let's do that. Except, oh, I'm sorry, we fired him a week before the show came out. Okay, like so it's like, do you not want success? Because I don't know who's, somebody in the House of Mouse is screwing something up, and it seems to me that they only succeeded here accidentally. I mean, lightning in a bottle. Let's hope they can do it in season 2. And most of season 2 has been written already. Bo DeMeo said, but he doesn't have the final say on so many things that he was able to do on season 1. So there's a good chance that we won't see that. So shame on them.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
I always like to say I guess we don't know why Bo DeMeo was fired. Hopefully it was nothing.
Yeah, nothing sordid, and illegal.
Nothing we'll regret.
I
nothing
know what it is.
Well, there's been talk of what it might be, but
yeah, I don't know if it's a fact, but it's
Yeah.
probably just a rumor. But
Yeah.
but I read an article about it, and they said what it was,
yeah.
and
So
it's tame.
yeah, it's
nothing.
it's very tame.
I mean, I've read.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I
I've read.
I know he's got accounts of some sort out
He has
there.
a OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly. And who cares? I mean, seriously, who cares? I mean, who cares, really?
Okay, so the thing is that I don't care about, but I've also read.
It's very difficult. Yes. Okay. Now that
I can understand.
Person to work for, and then people who've worked with him in the past,
Right.
on The Witcher and stuff, have said the same thing. And like, it's one thing to be difficult, but like it does get to a point where maybe
he's not worth the trouble any longer.
If he's creating a hostile work environment.
Yeah. So I don't know. I do agree. I'm nervous for the future, but I don't want to. There's also like you don't want. Even if people are putting out a good product, you don't want them to suffer.
No, I agree.
The product in the end, you know what I mean?
No.
So, like,
Right.
I'll just say that as the host. We don't know. These are just us thoughts.
Yeah.
Not that anyone's listening.
Just
to
rumors
podcast.
and speculations.
We don't know.
Allegedly, I forgot to put that part on.
Allegedly.
But so Shareef, you get to be the what's your? I know other people went ahead, but like, what was your highlight?
Yeah. Listen, man, I have so many highlights. It's ridiculous, but I'm gonna go through them all. So initially, the show started. Actually, I don't have a ton of highlights, but I have a lot. So one of my favorite things, I actually really enjoyed Storm losing her abilities. I love for what it meant. I love for that it happened. I loved her relationship with Forge. I always felt like her relationship with Black Panther. Allie, I don't know if you feel the same way, but her relationship with Black Panther always felt a little forced, and it didn't feel very true, and it didn't feel like an authentic love story. Her relationship with Forge, I felt, was more authentic and earned. And as me and Arco are turning into fossils, we need more. When we were younger, we didn't care. The guy meets the girl, they kiss, they're in love, we buying it. But now since time has passed, I really need these relationships to be earned. I need to care about people. People need to earn my affections. And whenever a relationship exists, I need it to feel real, and I need it to not just be 5 seconds and now they're in love and they will die for each other. So I don't know how you feel, Allie. I actually would like to know, how did you feel about the relationship between Storm and Black Panther? Did you feel like?
So yeah, I feel like anything that I've read or seen about Storm and Black Panther, it really wasn't their love story. Like they were already like established, they're in love. So yeah, I never really got that story. And yeah, here you did get it. The only thing though is the first part, like the first episode with Storm and Forge, like she's very angry at him, and it ends there. And then when she gets her powers back, then like I did feel actually like they kind of skipped something. Like I felt like it was understandable, like how she, to be angry, and then when you sort of, then if she took a step back and like thought about it, like, okay, you created this awful thing that took my powers away, but that you didn't but you were manipulated into doing it. You were young. You didn't, like, I get it, but I actually did feel like it was a little bit of a weird beat because I was wondering, like, how they
Yeah.
were going to deal with that, and they kind of just didn't. It kind of just the next episode, then she got her powers back, and
Right.
then
Yeah, no,
now she
they
loves
did
him,
glaze
and I
over
was like,
that a
wait,
little
Yeah,
what?
bit.
quick question about that. So, did the machine that Forge built actually give her powers back, but she had some sort of like mental block on it because of adversary like hampering it, or was the machine a complete failure and she just kind of like got her um powers back in
Are
that
we
confined
talking
place?
about in the show, or are we
In the
talking about
show.
Oh yeah, in the show.
in the comics?
In the
All my
show.
X-Men knowledge is from
Okay,
whatever
okay.
movies were and this show, so
I
I'm
I
never referring to the
believe.
comics.
I believe, as in the comics, also, and just in case you guys don't know, the gun was actually created to take out Rogue, who was a super villain before she joined the X-Men, and Storm got in the way of that. Um, it was written in the same way that it was done in the show, where it was more of a psychosomatic thing, where she was holding it, but it was brought on by the power of the gun. And she kind of went with it and kind of dampened herself, although she never left the X-Men and they never kicked her out. And that's how she got the powers back through dealings with Forge and the adversary. She was able to get it back in a little pocket dimension because comics. So yeah.
In the
No,
comics, was the
no,
adversary
and it was,
portrayed the same
and I don't know
way, or
why
was
they
that
actually did a little bit differently, because they were honoring Forge in this series as a very proud Native American, and a shaman, and who used mysticism a little bit. But in the comics, it was portrayed as first a friend of Forge's called Naze, Naze, who was dressed up as an Indian and everything, so he had that look. So, and then he turns out to be the adversary, trying to help, and he is manipulating Storm into actually trying to kill Forge. So it opens up this portal, and demons come through, and again, comics, and that's how that happened in the comics. The fact that he has the form of an owl or some sort of a beast makes sense to me also. As we know, a lot of Native American has a lot of the mysticism has to do with animals, so that works for me.
And
Uh,
also, the guy that shot her, Executioner, he had like an owl mask on too, and I don't know if that,
uh,
or if
th-
that was just like
yeah, no, that was just the
parts.
look of
Oh,
the
okay,
mask. It was just angular like that,
okay, yeah.
and for what it's worth, the Executioner didn't even come until much later in the comics, and it didn't have much going for him. James, one of the things of the Friends of Humanity, I don't know if you noticed this, but I know that you were a big Ultimate X-Men guy like me, or at least reading. Did you happen to notice that one of them had the scars on his face like Stryker from the Ultimate X-Men comics? Although I didn't see that was his name or not.
I
Did
don't
you?
think that was his name, but I did notice that.
Colonel Wraith is. I'm sorry, was the
Yeah.
comics. But did you happen to notice that? So I think that they kind of borrowed from that.
I think they did borrow too. And
Yeah.
just since we're talking about Forge, I don't know if anyone caught it, but the last episode, Bishop says Forge's last name, which was never in the comic books.
Oh, what was? I'm sorry, I missed it. Forge.
His name is Daniel. Daniel, I forget his full Native American name, but Chris Claremont only had that in his notes. So these guys did deep research.
Wow.
I
I
love the
missed that.
idea.
Oh wow!
I was gonna say I love the idea of like Bishop talking to Forge on the same level of friendship that he would have left Forge, but like they didn't know, and so Forge is talking to a complete stranger who is talking to him as if like, dude, you know how many times we've saved the X-Men? Like, we're in this together. And he's like, who are you and how did you get into my house?
This is
Like,
this is
I
a
love
this
it.
is a regular Tuesday for us, my man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Bishop.
Yeah, that was great.
I love how cool Bishop is. Sometimes he's like, obviously, he was used as like the straight man with like the concert, going to the concert and stuff. Sometimes Bishop is just the coolest guy that ever walked into the mansion. So
Yeah.
but Shareef, you were still going through your hit.
Yeah, so let me
Okay.
get back to it. All right. So Rogue was a revelation in this series. Rogue was on a power set Well, first of all, Rogue, we know now because of the movies how that I never really knew Captain Marvel in the comics. So I just knew Rogue took her abilities and put her in a coma. I didn't know like the full power set. So Rogue has her abilities, and Rogue is super duper strong and has never been this strong before. It was amazing that they when she went to the army base, when Rogue was going rogue, and she went to the army base, and they said don't worry, this thing could stop the Hulk. And Rogue busted that thing like it was butter. I was like, man, this is living. This is living. So she bust down there. She was super duper tough. She was angry. It was amazing. It was great to hear her with the Southern accent being upset. It was great to see her dark. It was great to see how powerful she was. And then, man, when she finally got her hands on the actual guy, I'm not even going to talk about her dropping the guy off the ledge. That was great too. For everything that Josh said, that all of those observations, Josh, are spot on. And I'm also a secret DC fan, not so secret. I just have to keep it down around Arco. So when she finally fought, dang, I can't remember his name now. The
Bastion.
Yeah, when she finally fought Bastion, and man, when she came in with that right hook, man, she was beating the brakes off of him. And it was perfect because she had been basically smacking people around looking for the guy. And she finally got her hands on the guy and she beat him unmerciful. And it was so interesting to see that he was powerless against her. And then she did the whole clap, which she's never done before. And I was like, listen, I was over the moon. I was over the moon with excitement about that whole fight sequence. I loved Rogue. When Rogue went bad, even though she was like really bad, I didn't know if that dude was human or not when she dropped him off the ledge. He was dead. So I was like, man, the Rogue is out of control, you know? But he lived, so that was fine. But it still felt like Rogue has snapped and she's not playing around. And you know, Gambit is the love of her life. And the sad part was that she chose Gambit at the end. Even though she did it in the worst way humanly possible.
When he was dead.
Magneto, kissing him, and then you're like, you know what, Magneto, this isn't really for me. Man. And I'm like, Gambit's heart's already broken into a million pieces. Like, it's way too late for you to start telling him that no, Gambit, that was all, I was confused. I really want you, you know? So
it took a while for Rogue to get back in my good graces after doing my man Gambit like that. I was like devastated. Me and my wife were watching it. We were just like, Rogue, what are you doing? God, I hate you so bad. Like Remy's just there, just like,
I know, man.
Moan to me, okay? Like, and you're just like, bro.
Listen,
but then you probably charge me up and blow me up.
They really flipped the love story of Gambit and Rogue on its head with all of this. When Gambit was sitting there on the side of in the mansion, and Rogue was going to meet Magneto secretly, and he was holding the card, I was like, man, they are not playing around. Like, they are really, really drilling this home. So my other favorite moment would, of course, be Wolverine. Josh already talked about it, but it bears repeating. Wolverine in the air, killing Sentinels left and right, shredding them with reckless abandonment about his own safety
or theirs. I mean, they were human just like an hour ago.
You know,
had a family.
Wolverine's not the type of guy who says, maybe we can find a killer.
No.
Wolverine's a murderer. So, so that was great. It was great to see him fully unleashed and fully berserker Wolverine, which is someone we rarely get to see. It was great when he stuck the claws through Magneto. It was great when Rogue dropped the guy and Wolverine says he did what we all wanted to do, which echoes back to what you were saying, Josh. There were people there that could fly. There were people that could teleport. They could have saved him easily, and they didn't. They just watched. So obviously he was right when Wolverine said that, you know. The other thing was my boy Gambit. Listen, I love Gambit. I love Gambit. I don't even know why. I love the whole, I don't know. I think it's because when I was a kid, it was just cool the way he talked, and it was cool his abilities, and it was cool that he wore the trench coat, and it was cool that he loved the ladies and would like blatantly flirt with women in front of Rogue. I don't know. We had talked about this before, Arco, but yeah, Gambit was a problematic character. He was kind of like Pepe Le Pew. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the '90s Gambit is not coming out today. To be quite honest
Yeah.
with you,
no,
yeah.
he's calmed down quite a bit in this version.
Of that. Thank you.
So, but Gambit fighting you, charging up the he charged up. I think he charged up a car. He charged up
His
the
scarf,
motorcycle. Yes, and then
his scarf, a Pop-Tart. Yeah, he charged
yes,
everything.
so when he charged up the guy, when he charged up the Sentinel, no one could beat. No one could get near, not even Magneto. No one could defeat this guy. And the guy who came through clutch was Gambit. Gambit charged the whole Sentinel himself and put himself in that position. So this was not only Gambit being, he's kind of like fly by the seat of his pants kind of fighting. This was a plan. He knew this guy was going to catch him. He knew he was going to touch him, and he knew he could charge up his entire body. And I believe, Arco, that's the biggest thing Gambit has ever charged.
Thank you very much for bringing me in, because I was hoping somebody would say something. So, in case people don't know, besides Wolverine, Gambit is definitely one of my favorite. Right up there. James knows this, and Gambit's power set is such that he can charge inanimate objects only. And the reason why is because he at one point was able to charge organic objects, and his power was starting to get a little bit out of his control. So what did he do? He asked Mr. Sinister to do something to him, and that was basically take out a piece of his brain so he would basically depower himself, or else Gambit would be an Omega level mutant to this day. In return, Gambit then had to, by the way, Josh, I don't know if you know this, but Gambit was the reason that the Morlocks were killed and the Marvel Mutant Massacre in 1986, because he brought together the team called the, I'm sorry, who did he bring together, James? I'm sorry, the...
Oh man!
Why am I messing this up? I apologize. It's too much mutant knowledge in my head here. But he brought the team in of a Scalp Hunter and Vertigo and Blockbuster down into the sewers, and they killed thousands and thousands of the Morlocks, and some of the X-Men were like wounded for years after that. And when they found that out in issue 350 in the 90s, like in 1997, 1998, they kicked him out of the team in Antarctica. All right. I mean, they just kicked him out and said, find your way home. And it won't be the mansion ever again. And he ended up surviving there. But so, yes. So Gambit has had, Gambit is an amazing a character. Shareef, your question is, did he ever do anything that big? I don't believe he's ever done anything that big in the comics. He limited himself purposely because of that, and I think that in the show, I was actually surprised that he was able to do that, and I think at that point he knew that he was going out, so he was going to take everything with him.
He just went all in, baby.
Yeah,
all in, exactly.
And the thing is that, like, if Gambit went around charging up buildings, he'd be a villain, because there's no way you can't charge up a building and have no casualties. You're killing everybody if you blowing up buildings, so he had to limit his powers. And I always thought Gambit uses the cards because they're light. He can do enough damage, but not too much damage. He's not trying to kill people.
I mean, no, he's trying to kill people. They're grenades. They cut people in half.
Well, it limits it because if he was throwing frying pans at people, I would imagine it would be worse. So that scene was amazing. I love that he said remember it. I love the callback, and I love the callback, and then that transcribes to Rogue. Because Rogue, when she found Bastion, when she punched him, she said remember it. And so that was a great callback. And truthfully, Storm was kind of like, she was kind of not really used as to her full ability as far as I'm concerned. As far as we were seeing a lot of new abilities or new use of an old ability, and we really didn't get to see that with Storm. I know she didn't have her abilities for a large part of the episode, but we didn't see a lot of her using her abilities in new and amazing ways. But I still love Storm anyway. Storm doesn't have to do anything. She's a mega level. She could make the whole earth winter. So, like she could cause a storm that electrocutes the entire globe. I think one time, Arco, and correct me if I'm wrong, she was able to control the weather on a different planet than the planet that she was on.
That is true. I cannot tell you which planet it was. It could have been Mars, for all I know. Yes, that is true. And I cannot listen. I'm fairly certain that happened after I got out. So if I'm
That's
wrong,
fine. That's fine. No. I think you're right.
comment in the section. Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong.
One really cool thing about Storm, I was like, when she lost her powers and then heard thunder for the first time without
She was,
knowing that it was
yeah,
coming, and she jumped. I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh shit!" That was
Yeah,
really,
that was super
yeah, that
sad.
was like,
She
yeah.
said
that
she
was
didn't
powerful.
feel it, and she
Yeah,
normally feels all of weather. So
Yeah.
that was really sad. That's why I thought it was a great. I know it takes place in the comics, but I thought it was a great thing because they were going up against super powerful people. So what do you have to do? You got to take out your most powerful mutant, because if Storm's there's no, it's like when you have Superman or Thor or Hulk. If you have the Hulk for little street level fighting, there's no fighting. Like the Hulk's just gonna come and kill everybody real fast. So you had to take Storm out so that the Sentinel threat would be a real threat, because Storm is one of those. Me and my friends, we always talk about which superheroes could defeat an army, and Storm is without question. Magneto is without question. Omega 11 mutants generally are super duper dangerous people, but I always like to think about like who could defeat an army of people, because that's a lot. It's not nothing, and it illustrates like the big picture of all of the allegories that the X-Men are, and
yeah,
everybody relates to it. If you're whatever you are, there's an X-Men character that will mirror your experience and help you
Yeah,
with your
it's true. It's
experience.
true.
And I thought that
I
was
was the blob.
Well, so I'm gonna bring this in for a landing soon. I will say Arco is the Marauders.
The
There you
Marauders.
go.
Geez, how the hell did I mess that
Yeah.
up?
So I want to
Nice.
end this talk for X-Men '97 because I think there's more thoughts, and maybe we'll gather together again as a team and talk about that. But expectations for season 2. So let's see if any. I don't know if you have any thought, what you want to see,
I,
what you make of the end credits.
Mm.
I, I. So again, I'm only going from the first episode to the last episode of this series. That's as much as like my X-Men outside sources are. They're not. It's just this. Um, I obviously, besides the mid end credit scene type thing with I believe it was Apocalypse holding the card.
Hmm.
I definitely think that Gambit, I don't think is gone forever, because also he was the only Vision, X-Men Vision, that Charles had when he was in outer space. And I know we didn't talk about Gladiator, but Gladiator ruled. He was awesome.
Yes.
But so, like, how many, 16 million or whatever mutants die, and he only has the vision of all like skeletons, and then Gambit like larger than life. And at first, on my first watch, I thought it was just like that was one of his students, and that's why it was so big to him. But then all of a sudden, Apocalypse is like talking while holding the card. I'm like, oh, okay, something's happening with Gambit, and it's gonna be rough, like cheering for him while he's going like side by side with Apocalypse, probably. But I'm sure I will because he's Gambit, and I mean, it's all I can do.
Josh, you are a very intuitive fellow,
Uh,
sir.
my man's a prophet. My man's a
Yeah.
prophet. Can I just? I'm raising my hand here, Josh, because you're actually giving away what they're going to do without knowing, obviously. But I will tell you.
Oh,
But James and I know that Gambit was one of the Horsemen of Apocalypse in the 2005, 2004, 2005. When he came back, he came up with a four new Horsemen of Apocalypse. Archangel was one of them back in the 80s, okay? And Sunfire was another one. And he was the Horseman Death. So now so basically he is foreshadowing the fact that he said there's so much death, and he had the Queen of Hearts in his hand, and Gambit, it was shown as a skeleton or death to Charles Xavier in that vision.
and like
So
massive, like he was like
yeah. Yeah, so that's what they're teasing. I will say that, and James knows that wasn't my favorite storyline either. I did not like the way that they portrayed Apocalypse in the comics there, because they made him way too goofy. But I don't think that's where they're going to go with this. So yeah, so that you know a lot more than you think you do.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think bringing him back with Apocalypse will be a nice way to bring him back without cheapening the loss of him dying. So the problem is, in comics they often kill people and bring them back, so there's no stakes. So they created a scenario where we had stakes. We lived with him being dead for the half of the series, and now if you bring him back, he's different, and it makes sense. And Arco, like you've been saying, they're doing these stories in bite-sized morsels, and they're doing them like very, very fast. So I think they could do it and not make it, and improve upon the story, and also not make it not cheapen the experience. Because if Bishop or Cable would have came and said, oh, I'm about to fix this, don't worry, and Gambit was back, that would have cheapened what happened. You can't have a monumental scene like that where some of our favorite characters, some of the sweetest characters die. I forget who's that little guy that
Leech?
Magneto was trying to. Yeah,
That was Leech.
Yeah,
Leech.
I love Leech.
Totally.
I mean, not like a great character that I want to see doing anything, but he's a sweet, sweet character. Like always, every portrayal, he's a sweet, sweet, sweet kid. So that was really, really sad, and I thought it was a nice touch that they had to speak German.
They killed Fishboy also. I mean,
they sweet people. Everybody's there living their happy lives.
They were mutilating everybody, sir.
Yeah. So for me, season 2, I really hope they can. I just want them to keep on par with what they're doing. They're great. I hope that since it's already written, I hope Kevin Feige doesn't stick his beak in and mess everything up. He needs to relax. He needs to fall back. I know, the real adversary.
Yeah.
I gotta relax. I don't want Kevin Feige to think Shareef hates his guts. Kevin, you are a godsend, sir. You provided us with 20 years worth of amazing movies. I don't know what's going on right now, but I still have faith. If you could let this happen, Deadpool seems like it's going to be amazing. So I feel like this is going to be the revival of Marvel. And it wasn't dead. It was just a lull.
Stale, yeah.
Mediocre, poorly.
Like cash grabs almost.
What do you call that? Arco, when the CGI is real terrible, mediocre, poorly animated.
Rendered
special effects. Yes, poorly rendered special effects. So I really just hope they keep the storytelling on the level that it is. I hope they pay off a lot of the characters. I hope that we still see the progression of Rogue, because Rogue has a great story arc in this where she kind of went bad and then she kind of sided with Magneto, and now she's kind of siding with Magneto again. I'm interested in what Sunspot does. I'm interested in Jubilee, what she does. The best part of that Mojo episode, heaven forbid,
Was Mojo,
there was a good part of Mojo. That Mojo episode was to see the evolved version of Jubilee and what her abilities can be, because sometimes her abilities can seem, pretty lame. So
like 4th of July, yeah.
Yeah, like just fireworks, and
Yeah.
they're not even hot, so
Mm.
yeah,
She called that out at the end, though. Which was awesome.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I've never heard that one before."
Yeah.
4th of July. Like, I don't know. I like that she played with it. She's like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
it's
whatever."
kind of-
Yeah.
And
It's kind of like Prisoner of
older
Azkaban,
Jubilee,
right? Like she
show
knows
her.
that she could do it because she saw herself do like a future version of
All
herself. do it.
right.
And she
Yeah.
knows that she could do it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Allie,
nice.
what are your hopes, thoughts on season 2?
Well,
Yes,
I hope for more
yes,
Beast.
we love
Yeah.
Beast.
I loved Beast this season. I
Yeah.
always loved Beast. I just hope there's more plot with Beast. And I'm excited for some the new mutants. I like that we saw Kitty on that when they were plotting where all the X-Men were, and they didn't know most of them, but Kitty was one of them. It said
And
off
Scarlet
world
Witch.
for Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. What's going on with that, and they teased that a little bit. And Magneto's visions with his 3 kids were there, but you couldn't really see their faces. I don't know, just all this stuff with characters that we haven't really seen. I don't really know what to expect. I know some of these stories a little bit, but the way that they kind of jumped around and had so many different stories, so many different comic stories in this season, they did go super fast, but then they did some things where they subverted expectations a little bit. My husband was like, how are they going to keep Wolverine alive? Because Jean wasn't there. How are we going to do that? Because he remembers it from the comics. He's like, Jean is the one who held his body together. So what's going on? I just had another one too Onslaught. Everyone was like, oh, Onslaught's coming. And so I was the last episode, I was like, okay, Onslaught's going to, and there could still be Onslaught in season 2, but that I was expecting that to happen in the last episode.
Perfect storm.
Their minds are melded, but that didn't, so that could still happen. But
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't happen the way that I was expecting it to, if it does. So
Yeah.
I
was
don't
thinking
know,
about that
I
too.
just loved every episode.
Oh yeah. Daredevil,
give me more
Spider-Man.
Devil.
I'll even take who's the Silver Samurai?
Silver Samurai, yeah.
Yeah, Silver Samurai.
Which made no sense to me that he was in there twice. I mean, why him? I mean, obviously it means something, but to me, I could not figure out why he was there.
He was
twice.
also, that means he was standing there. Either he went up there twice, or he was standing up there for over 12 hours straight. Just looking
Yeah,
at the dark
it was.
thing.
He was protecting. Man. He cleaned up the crime in his city, so he's just chilling.
No, that's not what he makes the crime. He makes the crime, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Sorry, just one more thing. I would love to see Wolverine and Storm in love in the future. Did they have a kid, Arco?
Yeah, you missed that. They did have a relationship in the Ultimate Comics, but then again, he
not a kid.
But then again, he also hit on Kitty Pryde. So
no, in the
original,
I'm sure in an alternate, but I don't.
original
The only
series,
one I knew
they
that they had some sort of relationship was Ultimate X-Men in the 2000s. But that's
in
it.
the original animated series, the 90s run, there was the episode One Man's Dream or something, and that was the 2-part Age of Apocalypse basically episode, and Wolverine and Storm were a couple. Okay. See, I don't remember that because I would have been very upset. In Age of Apocalypse, Wolverine and Jean Grey are a couple.
Oh wow!
So
that's better.
And it was good, and it was everything I wanted it to be.
All right, and James, sorry, this is just one last thing.
Sure,
this
no
I
It's
love
like Columbo. Just one more thing.
Apocalypse is my favorite villain since forever, and he is often, as Arco so eloquently put it, he is often done wrong. He is often portrayed inaccurately. He's goofed up and goofed out. So I would love to see him done justice, be the big bad that he is, and really be a big bad, you got to understand in the comics, Apocalypse, he makes Kang leave the time because he's like, this Apocalypse guy, everything I'm trying to do, he keeps messing it up. And Kang's like, I'm going to leave this time period. That's how powerful Apocalypse is. So I think that's important. I think to show his true abilities without it being goofy, and showing how dangerous he is. I always loved and I don't know if you remember this, Arco, but in the original animated series, when they introduced Apocalypse, Apocalypse said, they said, "Are you a mutant?" And Apocalypse said, "I am as far beyond mutants as mutants are beyond humans." And I always loved that line. And I always thought that is who Apocalypse is.
The reason why is because Apocalypse has been endowed with celestial technology. So he has the power of gods on top of his own powers, which were great by themselves, but he has enhanced himself with celestial technology. That's why he is as powerful as he is.
Right. And he's very similar to Sinister.
He created Sinister.
Exactly. And he takes abilities. He takes people's abilities. He gets new bodies, and he's really, really amazing. And I just hope that they do him justice. I feel like it's going to be done right because they're setting him up as the big bad, so that'll be great. Sinister was a little bit disappointing. There was a cool sequence with him, but Sinister overall was a little bit disappointing as a villain. Bastion came and Sinister was slinking into the shadows. It was real goofy when he got old and he was like, "Morph, show me my young face," and Morph showed him his old face. I was like, "Oh, poor Sinister. He's a hot mess."
But portrait of Dorian Gray,
yeah, pretty much. Exactly. I thought the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to probably put a pin in it there. I think we could probably do another episode of X-Men 97 because there's probably more stuff to see. Maybe we'll do another one. Sure.
Could I just say, James, can I say one thing? Because I know I messaged you earlier about if you ever wanted to do like a Fox X-Men episode.
Well, we should actually. We should do an episode on the Fox.
Oh yeah, because the Fox universe is dying.
Yeah, maybe
so that would be nice, but right before Deadpool for us to cover the Fox universe.
Yeah, so maybe we'll have to do that. So there'll be more X-Men episodes, audience, because we can't stop talking about the X-Men.
Yeah, and Josh, you need to get up to speed. I don't know if you're up to speed on the movies.
Well, so it's just 30, 40 years worth of comics I need to read by.
No. Just the movies. Just the movies.
I saw all the movies.
It can be done.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw all the movies. Don't worry. That's like all.
Then you're golden. That's all we're talking about. We're just talking about the movies.
So, all right. Well, listening audience, thank you for joining us into this dive into X-Men 97. I'm sure you have your thoughts and comments on it too, and we'd like to hear about them when I post this episode on our Facebook group or even our Instagram. We'd like to hear your comments, but of course, I could not do this excellent X-Men episode without my team. So, thank you, Shareef, for being here.
My pleasure, sir. It was really great. I'm very impressed with Josh. I like this guy.
Thank you, Josh.
Because you don't know how little I know about comics. That's all.
No, listen. I'm all about the analytics. So you're very analytical. Yeah,
then I got you.
That's all I need.
He's gonna be his code name, the Analyzer. Thank you, of course, to our Oracle, Arco, for being here.
Oh, thank you all for having me once again to speak about my favorite thing ever, X-Men.
And Allie, thank you for being the newcomer to this episode, to this podcast, and to the X-Men team. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Back.
I'm glad I could finally,
listening audience, like I said,
make it. I'm looking forward
please
to doing
leave
more.
your thoughts about X-Men 97. If you're listening to us for the first time, maybe because of X-Men 97, this X-Men 97 episode, thank you. We'd love for you to stay around. So we have, at the time of this release, over 200 episodes of the podcast where this Shareef has been on recently. Arco has many episodes. Josh Murray has many episodes. And because, we're a very eclectic podcast, we have episodes probably on something you'll enjoy. So please dive into the catalog. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't know what the YouTube is thing, but probably liking our this episode and
Whatever version
subscribing.
of like and subscribe. Yeah.
Like and subscribe. We appreciate that too. So we thank you for listening or watching, and we will talk to you on the next episode.